Hello. Um, I'm here in this video to talk about some things that I want you to consider when you start composing the individual paragraphs. Um, and I strongly suggest, I think this is critical and essential, that before you start composing these paragraphs, and you only have 10, that you have planned out exactly what you're going to be doing in each paragraph. Um, I like yellow legal pads, and if I were doing this paper, again, I'm projecting, I would probably have a page, one sheet per paragraph. For example, in the introduction, I would have the thesis, and I would have 3 or 4 things that I intend to talk about, say, in the lead-in. And I would have 3 or 4 things I intended to talk about in the concession. I think it's very difficult, if not impossible, to write while you're thinking about what goes where. So this video, and I'm going to try to keep this to 10 things, is based on that do-don't sheet. These are things that I have learned, skills that you want to make sure you do, and things you do not want to do to avoid in composing these paragraphs. The first is, and I'm thinking back to the complicity, make sure all your paragraphs are the same size. And I think 3/4 of a page is perfect. You don't want less than that, because the whole gig, as it were, is to develop with details. However, and I've done some research on this, the readability is impaired and negatively affected if it's longer than that. So for example, when you begin, I'd like to see your thesis on that first page, even though you do have the name block and you're not starting at the top of the page. So keep them all about 3/4 of a page. That means the introduction, that means the concession, that means each of these 7 body paragraphs, that also means the conclusion, 3/4 of a page. Next, try to avoid clutter. Now, we talked in the MLA, those 2 videos, about how to not provide superfluous, gratuitous in-text citing, just what is required, which is normally, without the exceptions, the name or both names, or the first, last name, et al., and the page number. And you have 3 options as to where that goes in proximity to the quote or paraphrase. I also want you to avoid words such as great, such as just, such as really, such as extremely. They don't really advance or further the argument. They just kind of, again, junk up the joint and impairs the readability. And readability is, to me, the most important thing in these academic projects. Also avoid abbreviations, also such as etc. Also avoid contractions. 1 or 2 would not be so bad, but a lot of contractions gets a little distracting. Again, just tampers down the tone a little bit. We want to keep this as sophisticated as possible. Third, and this is very important, I want to make sure 2 things. That whenever you write a sentence, you are in active voice. And active voice is simply the rule, the prescription, that you begin your sentence with the subject, and then the verb, and then the object. Jack likes Jill. Pretty fundamental. Jill is liked by Jack is passive voice, and we prefer active voice because it's more aggressive and confident. It's easier to understand. Imagine if it were a more complicated sentence. It's also, besides easier to understand and more aggressive and confident, it's less wordy. I also know what the subject is, which is important for emphasis and focus, of course. Second thing I want to make sure you do, and you'll get better at this, of course you will, and you'll be aware of this and more conscious of this, I think, in reading your sources, is that I don't want strobing. And what strobing is, and I've kind of coined this myself, is to say this, and to say this, and to say this, and to say this. What you want to do is coordinate and subordinate for emphasis. And you want some sentences that are longer and some shorter for understatement. And I have on this do-don't sheet, bullet 4, explaining what these 4 kinds of sentences are. And the profound part of this is that if you are not conforming to one of these paradigms, either the simple, the compound, the complex, the compound complex, the sentence is illiterate. So be aware that if you want to coordinate 2 simple sentences into a compound, there are 3 ways to do that. As I have here, I'm using a comma and a so, which is called a coordinating conjunction, or common but, or common nor, common or, depending on the relationship between these 2 sentences. You can also do this with a semicolon if these 2 sentences are very related, or an adverbial conjunction, which would be a semicolon, however, and a comma. They function just like the coordinating conjunctions, but longer, so they get fancier punctuation. Semicolon in front, comma afterwards. And then you have a complex sentence, and I like to see 200 students start doing this. In a compound, you're coordinating 2 simples together. In a complex, you're subordinating, where you have 2 ideas, where one is subordinate, or in other words, less important than the other idea. When Brian drinks coffee, comma, he gets the jitters. He gets the jitters is the main idea. The subordinate idea is that Brian drinks coffee, and it follows the subordinating conjunction when. And then the compound complex is simply a hybrid of the complex and the simple. After the tree fell on the house, comma, the entire roof collapsed. That's a complex sentence. After is a subordinating conjunction. The entire roof collapses, the main idea. And then we are simply combining, adding, as it were, a simple sentence to that with the coordinating conjunction and. So we have after the tree fell in the house, comma, the entire roof collapsed, and then comma and then we have the simple sentence. Every sentence you write must conform to one of these paradigms, either the simple or the compound, where you're coordinating 2 simples together, one of those 3 ways, or subordinating with a complex, and I want to see some of these. And if you have compound complex sentences, I usually mark them in the student papers. They're a little more rare. So active voice, and make sure that you are indeed writing in sentences, complete sentences, literate sentences. I said a lot of, told or talked to you, some of you in conference and also maybe in the office hours Zoom. I also need you to stay in 3rd person singular. He, she, it, or they for gender parlance. Please, no we's and you's and ours and ones. Again, they kind of junk up the joint, and it makes it a little clumsy and a little awkward. So make sure you are in 3rd person singular. And secondly, present tense, always. And also remember this too. So there are kind of 3 things in this bullet here. 3rd person singular, present tense. And remember this, and I do remember speaking to many of you about this in conference. Whatever the paragraph is, whether it's an introduction, a concession, one of the 7 body, or conclusion, the first sentence, the second sentence, and the last sentence of the paragraph, never, ever, 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 never a citation. So the research is in the interior. In other words, you're framing the research. Avoid generalizations. Avoid slang. Avoid cliches, but mostly avoid slang. I've spoken to many of you about this, even kids as slang. There's nothing that really contaminates writing faster, particularly academic writing, than slang. And I have found that it takes 2 or 3 sentences to kind of get the equilibrium back. Again, and I'm repeating myself, we want these sophisticated, and we want to be speaking, as Orwell said, right, very precisely, right? So choose your words and steal, as I've told you, from the research. It will kind of amp up your paper and the tone of your paper, as well as keep you connected to the research, which is important. Do not string beads. Don't have quote unquote. You know, if you're laying bricks, for example, you have a little mortar between the brick. So do not have one quote strung to another quote, kind of like a Scotch tape patchwork job. Make sure that you are, and I'm going to kind of interrupt myself. If you do quote, it's much, much better to keep them very short and sweet. Phrases are best to quote. So it's your linguistic stamp and your voice, and your digestion of the material that is important to evoke. Language is very, very important. Again, I'm repeating myself a little bit. You want to use the language of the sources. And I think I use this example to some of you, and it's a good one because it kind of makes the point clear. You don't want to say, for example, people want to look like Kim Kardashian. You would say that people conform to the Western cultural beauty imperative. That's the kind of phraseology that will appear in the journals in the more sophisticated text. And this is what we want to emulate. This is what we want in the paper. And so you might put quotations around that phrase. But again, don't have long, chunky, clunky quotes. They're not readable and not as seamless as we prefer. I want a lot of details in your paper. I need to learn about wrap. I need to learn about cosmetic surgery. I need to learn based on all this reading that you've done. The more details, the more interesting, the more informative, the more stimulating, the better I think you read that material. Again, fundamentally, these are reading gigs. You're simply extracting and sharing this in the appropriate paragraph to teach and to convince. The two purposes. Please proofread before you send this to me Friday before midnight. And you know there are no lates. Make sure, for example, that you're writing in complete sentences. One little point that I haven't mentioned, but if you introduce your quote with that or because, you don't need a comma between the text and the quote as you normally do. And you don't need to capitalize the first letter of the first word in the quotation. This is, by the way, in Chapter 11. Chapter 11 in Lester is everything about in-text citing. And of course, Chapter 14 gives you every possible source and how to format that according to MLA for your works cited page. And finally, I love transitional words. I like them within the paragraph, so we keep everything straight. I like the phrase, however, comma, some research suggests at the beginning of your confession. I like in conclusion, comma, and then a reminder of your thesis. Please don't say it word for word. That would sound kind of silly. But you want to remind me of what you've been trying to convince me of before you then go on in your conclusion and point out, analyze the significance within the bigger picture of what you have hopefully and allegedly convinced me of in the reading of your text. I think that's about it. I'm going to say this one more time, proofread, and pop in and see me or talk to Margarita or Jasmine if you have any further questions. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.